Friday. Welcome back to the show. I have my guest right here hanging on the line. Please, sir, go ahead and introduce yourself.
All right, my name is Byron Cagle. People might know me as Merlin187 or on YouTube, and I also have a channel that's Merlin's. No, I took that part off. It's Mysterious Encounters. That's what it is.
Okay.
Took me a minute there. I had to take a little time off after the election.
Okay.
Because of all that stuff, and I'd been putting a lot of time in on it. Right there, running up into the election, and the Lord had me take a little time off to spend some time with the family.
Amen.
Been enjoying it.
So, with that being said, let's just get right into it. Your information was passed down to me, I'm pretty sure you know, by Corey, our mutual friend, and he told me that you just have this really amazing story with a lot of detail. You had a near-death experience. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, I was told that you went to heaven and hell. And
yes, I had 2 near-death experiences. It took the Lord letting me go twice before I got everything turned around.
All right, so yeah, since let's get into it. So, however you want to start, I would love to hear the audience would love to hear this story as well.
All right, we'll do. I'll just start from the beginning on the near-death experience. I was 19 years old and was having an ear infection. I had ear infections all my life in my left ear, and I didn't really think much of it. They were sometimes bad. But when I was 19, I was working at this factory, and I'd get insurance, and I went and saw a doctor, and the doctor, said, we need to call in a specialist. And I didn't think anything about it. I said, okay. Well, they fly this guy in, supposedly one of the best ear, nose, and throat doctors in the world.
Oh, wow.
And the guy had me come in, looked at my ear, did some x-rays and things like that, and then put this antibiotic gel in my ear and packed it. And said, that has to stay in for a week, and I want you to come back next week. I came back the next week, and we go in his office and sit down. He said, here, let's get this stuff out of here. And he takes the packing out and cleans my ear out and everything. And then commences to telling me, you've got a tumor.
Oh, wow.
In your ear canal, and there's nothing I can do for you. I'll write you whatever type of pain medication you need to keep you comfortable. I said, what are you trying to say? And he said, well, I have to tell you like it is, you don't have long to live.
Oh, wow. And
you may have 6 months, it may be 6 weeks.
Wow. So is this tumor growing in your brain? Is it where exactly is it at?
Well, it was in my ear canal, but the problem was the infection that was in my head was antibiotic resistant, and it was eating through my skull, and the way it was explained to me, it was going to eat a hole in my skull, and when that infection made it to my brain, that it'd be over.
Yeah.
In a particularly painful death at that.
Oh, wow.
And when they told me that, I mean, I'm 19 years old. Yeah. I think I've got my whole life in front of me. And I knew about the Lord. I was raised in the church. But I got mad, and I started trying to talk to the Lord about it. And because he didn't answer me the way I expected him to right off the bat or, anything like that, I just decided, you know what, I don't believe in you. How could there possibly be a God in heaven that would let this happen to me, basically? I was being a petulant child, basically.
Yeah.
And because they had me on narcotic pain meds for that, I just went berserk.
Oh, yeah, they'll do that.
I started getting high all the time and just doing whatever I wanted to do. And it'd been about 6 months. And I would literally laugh in your face if you mentioned God to me.
Wow.
And I was sitting in the car. There was a couple of people in the back seat, and we were getting high. And I overdosed. And just like it says in the Bible, I opened my eyes up in hell.
Oh, wow. So how was that whole experience, if you could just slow down a little bit? So you're in the backseat of the car, you guys are popping pills or whatever, crushing them. After that, that whole overdose, how does that whole process happen? Did you just start fading away?
I wasn't just taking pills. I was shooting up. I shot up and I died.
Okay.
I was taking a shot 1 second, and the next second I opened my eyes up and I was in hell.
Wow. It's quick.
That quick. Yeah. It's just, you're here 1 second, you're gone the next.
So
there was this.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to ask you, just right from the very moment of hell, I would love to hear every detail from how it happened. I want to know what's going on. Like, try not to miss any steps, because this is very interesting to me.
Yeah. Well, when I opened up my eyes, it was like I was in this cave underground, but I could see fire reflecting off the wall. You know how, like, there's a big bonfire in a cave and you can see the light hitting the wall?
It's like flashing a little bit, hitting against the wall,
Yeah, well, that was what it was like, and there was this giant figure in front of me, and he looked like a clown.
Oh,
like something off the movie Spawn or something, you know? This is before that movie, but yeah. Wow. Just a clown demon thing, and his eyes were spinning while he was talking to me.
And what was it saying?
And it was using my great-grandmother's voice. A couple of years before that, my great-grandmother passed away. And when I went over the last time to see her, a bunch of me and my cousins went and worked on her roof and patched the roof up for her and went in to talk to her a little bit. And the last thing she said to me, she said, "Come and give me a hug." And I went and hugged her, and she said, "Promise me that you'll be a good boy." And I said, "Yeah, Granny, I'll be a good boy. I'll be good." You know, that was the last time I saw her. And that was what that thing started saying. Said, "You promised me you'd be a good boy."
Oh, jeez, that's awfully creepy, man.
It was. And it just kept saying, "You promised me you'd be a good boy, but you didn't, did you?" He wasn't a good boy.
And how big is this thing? We're talking like, what, 9-10 feet tall?
Oh, man, I would say it was at least 12 foot tall, at least.
And, and I'm asking these questions seriously because I've talked to many people and the resemblances are always similar but different. Are these things like super, like buff, muscular, like these big brutes? That's what I hear. Like they're just these big.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was like. Just huge.
Wow.
And it was telling me, "You promised me you'd be a good boy, but you didn't. Don't you want another hit of that stuff?" And I was just like, I don't even want to talk to this thing. I'm freaking out.
Yeah.
One minute I'm sitting in the parking lot in the car getting high, and the next minute I'm in front of this thing and it's talking to me with my great-grandmother's voice,
Did you think sorry, really quick. Did you think when you woke up, did it feel like you didn't die? Did you know you died yet, or do you just think you were tripping?
Oh, no, I knew.
Oh, exactly wow, okay.
Where I was at. There was no doubt in my mind. And the reason I knew is because of this right here. We go around all day having like an interior monologue or dialogue with ourselves. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And we think we're talking to ourselves, but we're not. We're not. That's God you're talking to. Or you've got the Spirit of God talking to you. Or it can be an unclean spirit of the devil, the tempter.
Wow.
You're carrying on a dialogue with those entities in your head every day. Every one of us are. And I didn't realize this, of course, until it was gone.
Oh, wow.
That wasn't there. And I felt it like an empty hole inside of me. I could feel that I was cut off from God.
Jeez, you're making me think a lot now, because I do have those dialogues with myself all the time, and sometimes it can be full on arguments, and you think you're crazy.
Yeah, you're not arguing with yourself. You're arguing with what we call our conscience, but it's really the Holy Spirit talking to you, trying to urge you to do things the right way. And once it's gone, there's no doubt in your mind what has happened. It's gone. You feel the emptiness there.
That's something.
That dialogue ain't there no more.
Jeez, that's really wild to think about. That's scary. Yeah. It's very scary, man.
It was very scary. And then all these it was like little shadows coming out. I mean, maybe the size of a loaf of bread or something started coming out of these side tunnels and things. And they started scratching me up and clawing me and trying to pull me down. And I knew where they were trying to pull me down into the pit. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
And once that started, And I remember thinking right before they hit, I deserve this. I earned this. This is where I belong. God's right to judge me this way.
Hey, what a
Because
realization.
I remembered every time in my life. You know, people say sometimes when they die that your life flashes before your eyes.
Yes.
Well, what they don't tell you, or this is what happened to me, and I'm assuming it does to other people because of the terminology they use. You remember every time that God offered you a chance and you slapped his hand away or spit it back in his face.
Yeah.
And you know that was God reaching out to you. You know every time you lied to yourself and justified what you did and that you were wrong. You remember every sin, everything that you did wrong that was you haven't repented for. You remember every single, you have total perfect recall, total clarity.
Yeah. Wow.
And I remember thinking, I deserve to be here. I deserve this. And when they started trying to drag me down the pit, I just said, God, I don't know if you're even bothering to listen to me anymore, and I wouldn't blame you if you didn't. And I'm not asking you to forgive me because I don't deserve to be forgiven. You gave me every chance in the world. But I do want you to know this. I'm sorry. And when I said that, snatched me out of there. I was right back in the car.
Jeez. Wow.
For the guy trying to open the door up and pull me out onto the parking lot so they could work on me. The girl that was in the car with me was a nurse. She said that my heart had been quick beating for over 2 minutes. And that they'd already sent somebody to call an ambulance. I literally had to leave the parking lot so I didn't have to deal with the police.
Jeez.
They'd already went and called an ambulance for somebody to come get me.
So you were dead for about how long in this reality?
That time, in reality, in the natural here, I was dead for over 2.5 minutes.
And how long were you there in hell, you think?
Oh, probably 20 minutes.
Wow, it's crazy how time's different. There's like a temporal type of aspect to it that everybody can relate to. Everybody, that's been through this talks about this temporal thing, but I think that's pretty, that just proves, the point that everybody around the world is having the same kind of experience when it comes to that. But yeah, go ahead. We're so out there.
I've heard a couple people talk about it, that it really, things that they said really brings it back. So, people are seeing a similar thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But, I turned it around there. I quit making fun of people about God, and I started turning my life around. But I wasn't perfect. And I was still doing some things I shouldn't be doing. And about 2 years later, my dad died. And I was still having trouble with my ear, that infection in my hip.
Yeah.
And my aunt and uncle came down for the funeral and stayed for a few days, and I had to take them back up to North Alabama. I live down on the Gulf Coast.
Yeah.
And I had to take them back up there. Well, I had went to the doctor before I took them up there, and then left straight from the doctor's wanting to take them home. Well, the doctor's office, and this is back in the 90s, early 90s, it's before cell phones, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so my mom didn't have any way to get in touch with me, but the doctor's office called the house. Within 30 minutes of me leaving, they took a sample of the infection in my ear, and the doctor told my mom that I had to get to the hospital immediately, that the levels of infection in my head were dangerous. And, of course, she couldn't tell me I was on the road. It's a 6-hour trip up there and a 6-hour trip back. And I didn't get in until after like 11:30 at night or so. And I remember I come in and I laid down on the bed and my head was just pounded. I don't know if you ever had a real bad earache. It's like somebody's got a piece of metal hitting a hammer with it every time your heart beats. You can hear it.
Yeah, I've had vertigo before. It's pretty bad. Yours probably 1,000 times worse.
It was just awful. And it was hurting so bad I couldn't hardly think. And I remember laying down on the bed and going to sleep. And I could still feel it in my sleep, sort of.
Jeez.
And the next thing I know, I was in this field down here below my house. There's a dirt road down there and a big sod field. And there was a guy there that was buddies with my dad. He used to work with him. I hadn't seen him since I was a kid. And I said, "What are you doing here?" He said, "Well, I come to meet you." I said, "Well, thanks, I guess." And, I sat down there beside him. He just looked at me and he said, "Don't you think it's time for you to let it go?" And I don't know what he meant by that, but at the time, I suppose I did. I just started crying like a baby. I started sobbing. And I said, "I can't let it go." And he just hugged me and he's telling me everything was going to be all right. And then I looked up and it was nighttime, but I could see real well. And it was sort of like when I was a kid, there was a baseball park across from the house, and in the summer they'd have the lights all on. And that's sort of what it was like. And I went to looking, and I looked over toward the other end of the field, and there was this huge beam of light going straight up into the air. And I just started walking that way. I had to see what it was.
Yeah, of course.
And I remember when I was walking, I could hear the breeze and the bushes swaying back and forth, and it's making like a murmuring sound, and even the grass was making a sound. And I could see in color, but it was dark outside.
Wow.
And I walked over there, and when I got over there close enough, I wasn't all the way there, but when I got close enough, I realized it was a big throne and a being of light sitting on that throne. And I couldn't look at it. It was so bright, I couldn't look at it. I had to turn my head away from it to walk toward it. And once I got just the right distance, I realized that's God. And about the time I realized it, I just fell right on my face. Just like, straight down, pow, onto the ground. And I could feel him going through my thoughts. You remember when you was a kid, how you go to the library and they had that card catalog?
Yes.
You just, go through them with your finger. That's the only way I can describe it. He was going through my lights like you would just go through a card catalog.
Wow.
And I thought to myself, "Oh no, I'm going to go to hell again." And it was terrifying.
Gee, so when you were when you were looking at how outside looked, how everything was the same, but what it seems to me enhanced, right? It's like an enhanced nighttime, like everything's brighter, everything. Do you think that's because like the presence of God was there, or do you think you're in like in another dimension that looks similar to ours?
I can tell you exactly what it was.
Okay.
All of creation is alive. Everything God creates is alive.
Yeah, of course, yeah. He's the creator of life.
How people talk about in heaven, the animals will talk and everything. It ain't just the animals. It's the trees, the grass. Everything is alive. And it's more vivid, more real than this is.
Well, also
than the natural world we're in now, in this fallen state.
Yeah, so maybe it's because you were in your spiritual form, you were able to
That's exactly what it was.
Yeah.
I wasn't in my flesh body, and I could literally see the way we're supposed to see everything, the way man saw everything before the fall.
Beautiful, probably just like this glow, right? You said
everything was beautiful.
So everything was like glowing, you said, right? Kind of like a glow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like a neon type of, I'm just thinking right now, like I'm thinking like Avatar at night, maybe something like that, or no?
Yeah.
Yeah,
it was sort of like that. Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. That's the first thing I thought when you said that.
Yeah, it was just everything was alive, and you could hear it whispering. Like the grass, the blades of grass were whispering to each other, and the leaves on the trees were whispering to each other. I couldn't quite make out what they were saying, but I could hear them just like whispering at each other.
Wow, that's amazing. That's truly amazing.
And then when I had that thought, oh no, I'm going to go to hell again. It was wild because he reached over and grabbed me by the arm and said, "It's okay, son. It all weighs out in the balance." And started picking me up, got me to stand up. And then he said something that my dad would have said to me. He said, "Are you ready to go, son?" And I said, "Yeah." And I didn't realize what he meant. You know, I just wanted to go with him. I wanted to be with him.
Yeah.
And then we started moving up through like a tornado of light. All that light that was going up in the sky, everything it just started coalescing around us and spinning around us like a tornado, a vortex of light.
Wow.
And we started going up.
Crazy.
And then I heard my dad's voice talking, but I couldn't understand what was being said. After we got, I would say 200 or 300 feet up in the air, I finally started understanding the words, and my dad was saying, "You can't take him yet, Lord.
Oh.
You can't take him yet. It'll break her." And what he was talking about was my mother.
Yeah, I was just.
He said, "It'll break Brenda's faith if you take him right now." I haven't been dead a week. Her dad died about 4 months before I did, and now you're going to take her only son. That'll break her.
Yeah.
And I realized what he was saying, and I said, "He's right, God." And we stopped going up. We just stopped right where we were. And he said, "You can go back, you know, it's your choice. But I'm going to tell you right now, if you go back, you're going to suffer through things that nobody should have to suffer through."
Wow, what a dark warning.
And he let me see some things. Thank God he took that away from me within 24 hours. Some of the stuff I remember, I don't really talk about it.
Okay.
But he said, "You can go back, but you'll suffer through things that nobody should have to." And it broke my heart. I said, "Lord, I can't do it. She'd stay for me. I have to stay." And he said, "Okay, so be it." And I just went shooting out of that tornado of light and went straight back to my house and into my body. What I wasn't expecting when I opened up my eyes was my heart wasn't beating and I wasn't breathing and my ear wasn't hurting. There was no pain, nothing.
Wow.
And I remember thinking to myself, I'm not breathing. And then I went and took a real deep breath and my heart started beating all at once. And it felt like somebody threw a lit 5-gallon bucket of gasoline on me from head to toe. I mean, it's like I was on fire all over. My body was hurting. Every nerve ending in my body hurt.
Wow.
And that's when I realized there was a cloud of demons at the window trying to get in at my body. And it scared the crap out of me. I rolled off the bed and went to praying and rebuking them in the name of Jesus. And they left. But I thought about it since, and I realized that's what causes these flesh bodies to be corrupted, is because if they weren't, those things could take them over.
Yep, that's very true.
But I went and woke my mom and my grandmother up, and they prayed with me. They believed me. They didn't have no problem believing me because they took my temperature. My temperature was down around 92. If you get under 95, you're supposedly dead.
Yeah.
But also, my whole back and the backs of my arms and legs was purple for about a week because the blood had already started to pool. So I don't know how long I was dead that time. But I know it was longer than it was the last time.
And was it like, were the doctors like, this is a miracle? Or because.
Yeah. I mean, I went and saw the doctor the next, well, it was Saturday. So I didn't get to see him until Monday morning, but I went and saw him Monday morning and I told him what happened. He said, "Yeah, I can tell because you've got what they call lividity." And he explained to me what that means. That's like when somebody's murdered and their body's laying on the ground, or they just die and their body's laying on the ground, but the blood starts pooling. It starts going down all into one spot. You don't have your heart to pump and keep it moving around through your blood vessels and everything, and it starts leaking out of your capillaries. And that's what caused my whole back and my backs, my legs and everything to be purple.
Did it cause any
I
permanent
could tell
damage?
your heart wasn't beating for some time.
Yeah. Does it cause permanent damage or anything?
No,
Okay, good.
no, it didn't. And within a year, I got told to go see a doctor in Birmingham at UAB Hospital, and they'd come up with a new surgery they called a radical mastoidectomy, and was able to remove the tumor and drill out part of my skull.
Oh, good.
Well, they didn't get all of it. They still tell me if I don't go get that surgery again within a year, I'll be dead. I've been hearing that for the last 25, 30 years.
Good for you. That's funny.
Another thing I learned is nobody know when you're going to die. God is the only one that knows when he's going to take you out of here.
Yeah, that's very true. 100% true. That's when my grandmother, my last grandmother that passed, they said she had like 6-7 months or something like that left. She died not even more than a week later, right away.
Yeah, that happens a lot of times.
So what I was going to say, go back to your story though, really quick. When after you woke up from all this, who was there to like witness all this? Did you have any other people that were there that saw all this happen besides the doctors, like your family members?
The only people, there was nobody to witness it when I died that time until after I was revived.
Okay.
And it was my mother and my grandmother.
Okay. That's amazing. Wow. You got to experience both of that. Did that change you when you came back? Were you just like, boom, back?
Yes.
Yeah.
It really did change me. And I'll tell you something that you probably wouldn't suspect. I know I wouldn't have suspected it until it happened. Would you like to know which one was the scariest?
I'm gonna assume I'm gonna say with God.
It was.
Yeah, you're supposed to.
That was an order of magnitude more scary than hell.
Yeah, you're looking at the one that has the final decision, no matter what.
Yeah, I realized when I was flat down like that, you can't close your eyes and shut out the light. You can put your hand over it and shut. I tried. You can't get rid of that light, and it's that bright. I mean, it's painful bright. And I could feel him going through my thoughts, and I knew he saw everything. Everything.
It's just man, I can't even imagine you're in that spiritual realm where everything's more intense. So the fear and the anxiety is probably just unimaginable.
Yeah. But you know, when he told me, he said, "It's all right, son. It all weighs out in the balance." And he helped me up. I could feel his love, not just for me, but for all of humanity, but for me in particular as well.
It's like yeah.
And when he said, "Come on, son, you ready to go?" Like I said, it was my dad used to say that to me, and he'd always have a smile on his face. "Come on, son, you ready to go?" From the time I was a little kid, and that's what it made me think of. He's always wanting to have an adventure with us. He wants to be part of our lives. He doesn't want somebody to fall down and worship him all the time. He wants somebody to talk to, somebody that makes him part of their life. It's not about a religion. It's about relationship. That's why he created us to begin with, is because he wanted a family. He wanted somebody to talk to.
Yeah.
He wants us to run everything past him. He wants to be a part of our lives, but not just a part of, what we decide to share, but with the whole thing. He wants to be a part of all of it in everything we do.
Yeah, just
that's why he's always there having that dialogue with us in our head.
It makes me think about a lot of things. It's kind of even emotional to think about all that.
Ain't it?
Yeah. It got me thinking. That's why I'm a little quiet. I'm thinking about all the things I've done. I'm thinking about those conversations I had in my head, the good ones and the bad ones. It just makes you ponder about a lot of things. This is the first time I heard it. The way you're putting it is the first time I heard this. And I'm not surprised, because every time I talk to somebody of the faith, I learn something new, even though I've been into this for, almost 20 years.
Yeah.
You're still always learning. When you say that, it's just very emotional. Think that he wants a family, he wants to be part of our lives. That stuff just makes you think.
Yeah, that's what he wants more than anything.
Yeah.
And I got the sense when it happened of what he was willing to sacrifice for us and what he had already sacrificed for us. He came down here in the flesh. and not just gave his life for us. He did that too, of course, and it was a very painful way to die. One of the most painful ways you can think of to die.
Yeah.
And was tortured for hours before the real torture of death started.
Yeah.
But he became sin for us. He didn't just say, here, I'm going to pour some blood on it and wash it off. He became sin for us. Another thing that I came to understand later through prayer and talking with him about it. You know, in the Garden of Gethsemane, it talks about how he was praying and he asked the disciples to pray with him and they all fell asleep.
Yes.
And he talks to the Lord and he says, you know, Lord, could this cup pass from me? Nevertheless, not my will be done, but your will be done. And he started sweating, and the sweat was like drops of blood coming off of him.
Yeah.
Well, that's when he started taking on our sin. Anytime you go and you pray and you say, Lord, please forgive me for doing that. I'm sorry. I repent, Lord. I ask you that you take this from me. Jesus is not bound by time like we are. You're going to him sometime between the time he started praying in that garden and when he gave up the ghost on that cross and said it's finished. We're adding to his weight on that cross every time we sin.
Man, whatever. It just makes me like really think about what you're saying, because I'm looking this up right now with the blood sweat. I'm looking for the quote unquote scientific explanation, and it says this happens only in rare situations where someone is just completely above the level of extremely stress or anxiety. It is beyond those words. Basically, what this research is telling me, that there's not a word for it, but other than extreme stress or anxiety. So he must have been going through so much at that moment when you said the sins hit him. He's actually sweating blood. I'm looking it up right here in the medical condition.
Yeah.
And it
Every sin that's ever been committed that he has pardoned, he's experiencing it right then.
Jeez.
For the entire world, for generations.
I don't think people really know how painful Elvis that he went through is. The Passion of the Christ is a very good movie, but it is it is play though to the torturing they depicted in there to what really happened to him. I mean, it was 1,000 times worse with the real story, what the real torturing was.
Imagine every murder, every rape, every theft, every time a person's lied or stole, or all of it. He was experiencing all of that in that stretch of time from the time he was praying there and that happened until he gave up the ghost on the cross.
Not even the actual torture itself. I was talking about that. It didn't really display in the movie accurately because, like I said, it was worse. His spine and his rib cage was actually exposed from the whipping, and he was also whipped to the point where even his genitalia was mutilated, and he had to carry a 300-pound cross after all this, and carry it for some miles. 300. Only people that work out, and I don't mean this like in some kind of cocky way. I'm just talking like in general. Only people that work out and that can squat 300 pounds or deadlift it can only understand how heavy that is. Okay, you could barely move it, let alone squat it, and you're going to carry it for this many amount of miles, and your spine is exposed, your ribs are exposed. They also, they did so many bad. It's just way worse. I don't even like talking about it, but they also broke his knees, all kinds of stuff. But anyways, my point is that it was a lot worse than what people see in the movie. The people that don't read the Bible, they have a rude awakening. He went through a lot. A lot.
And think about this. Which do you think was more painful to him, the physical pain or the spiritual pain?
The spiritual pain is always more real.
All that sin.
Yeah.
Someone that had never known sin.
Yeah.
Literally, God in the flesh, a being that sin cannot even come into the presence of, he became that sin for us. And every time we sin, we're adding to that burden.
And
that's another one he has to deal with.
Yeah, and those sins were from that time in the future and all, you know. That's what people.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And going back in time.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah.
The people before the advent of Christ didn't have the promise. What they had was a covenant where they would shed the blood of an animal, and that would cover them for another year. That was the only promise they had until he came. That and the fact that he would come.
Yeah.
So he's been forgiven he became the sin from the beginning all the way to the end. Every single sin. Think about it. Every serial killer, everything they've done, he got to
awful.
see and experience it from both sides.
Yeah. It's
every wicked thing ever done in the history of man.
Yeah. And it's really bad. I can only imagine. Can't even imagine, actually.
Yeah, I can't even really imagine how horrible that had to be.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that a lot of people don't understand that. And the faith is getting stronger, but it's also getting weaker at the same time with believers. But I believe the very few are going to be the ones leading the new.
Well, that's what he said. There'd only be a remnant that makes it.
Yeah.
He said, broad is the path that leads down to destruction.
Uh-huh.
Narrow is the path that leads up to life, and few there be that find it.
Amen. So
everybody thinks in their own heart they're justified, that they're a good person. I'm sure Hitler thought he was a great guy.
Yeah, of course. We all think we all try to justify ourselves sometimes. It's just it's just the human nature of the fall of us, unfortunately. But we got what we just said right now. We got the forgiveness of Jesus Christ, and you just got to seek it. It's for free. It's free, and anybody can have it. It's free, and anybody can have it.
But he paid a great price for it.
Yep. So I wanted to ask you here. I want to segue into something else that I wanted to ask you. So besides all this near-death experience and the things that you went through spiritually and emotionally with your tumors and all that stuff that you went through, so do you think that right there had anything to do with maybe spiritually awakening you to seeing other things? Because when we spoke before, you said you have also encountered these cryptids by people call it Bigfoot, Sasquatch, and then werewolf or dog-headed man, whatever you want to call them. People know what we're talking about. Was this before or after all this? And
well, that was before. That was before.
Okay, even more interesting.
Yeah.
So if you go ahead and tell me about it.
I'll just kind of start at the beginning on that. I grew up in North Alabama until I was a teenager, and then I moved down here on the Gulf Coast. But up there, pretty much all over Alabama, and from what I'm starting to understand, pretty much everywhere all over the country, them things are thick as lice.
Yeah.
But especially up there, I mean, in the community I grew up in, the old timers would call them woolly boogers. Or some of them even call him old Slewfoot. Talking about them Bigfoot creatures.
Oh, okay. Interesting names.
Yeah, ain't it? And then you'd have places that was called like Devil's Ridge or Devil's Hollow and things like that. Well, that's what they were talking about.
The Bigfoots.
Those things were there.
Okay.
Yeah. And most people experienced it. They just didn't see them. You'd go to the convenience store on the corner, and you'd hear one of the guys say, "Did you have anybody fooling in your place last night? We had some prowlers last night." And one day this guy would speak up, the next day another. "Well, yeah, they was around my house last night too. They must have got busy." They wasn't talking about teenagers. I thought they was talking about teenagers or something when I was a kid. No, they wasn't talking about teenagers. There ain't no teenagers can run around in the dark like that.
I was about to say,
and do the stuff that them things were doing.
Yeah, this is like out in the wilderness, so neighbors are miles apart. Yeah, well, teenagers, that sounds ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not only that, I mean, we didn't have these big security lights and everything like that back in the late 70s, early 80s. We just didn't. And it's a rural area. There wasn't a lot of street lights. Them things could run around in your yard like it was the noontime sun was out. And you're out there in the dark trying to figure out what's going on. And they were just all over the place. My mom had a run-in with one when I think I was about 6 years old. I had a dog. It was a black and tan, kind of like a beagle puppy, right?
Yeah.
That my uncle had given me. And she was walking back from my grandmother's house next door, and there was a car parked out there. Something went bad on it, and it hadn't been moved in about a month or so. And she was walking past it, and one of them come up from behind it. And my mom just thought it was a man, but she kept saying he was so big. There wasn't no street light, but she could, the moon was out a little bit, and she could see a shadowy shape. And the dog that was with her, my dog was with her, and it jumped at the thing, tore its throat, and it was while it was wrestling with the dog, she ran back inside and went and got my uncle and his friend that was staying there at my grandmother's house, and they both got flashlights and shotguns and walked her home. And she was telling me and my dad what happened, and she said, I think they killed your dog. And about that time, we heard the dog scratching at the door, and my dad opened the door, and it was laying there, just barely breathing, and he pulled it in the house, and we had to, tend to it for a while. It took it days to get up and around again.
Oh,
but
man.
its throat was all swelled up where that thing had choked it.
Oh, shoot. Wow. Poor dog. Geez. So, sorry. This was your mom, right? This is your mom that experienced all this. And when this happened, how big do you think this thing was when your mom described it?
From her describing it, it was about 8 foot tall.
Yeah, that's usually.
She just kept saying it was tall. That's all she could say. But I got the distinct impression from the way she looked up, it would have had to have been about that size of what she described.
Shoot. So what happened after that?
Well, we moved from there for a little while. We wound up moving back, but we moved from there for a little while, and then we came back. And one night, my dad had a toothache, and he wanted me to go next door to get my uncle to pull his tooth for him.
Oh, geez, that sounds painful.
And this was the dog man encounter. Of course, I didn't know that back then. I just thought of it as a werewolf. I'll be honest with you.
Well, yeah. What else can you possibly relate it to?
Yeah, I was about 14, and I'll just be honest with you. I'd smoked some pot with my brother-in-law. He was a couple years older than me, and I was just about to come down from it. My dad was telling me, "You got to go out there and get your uncle." And I went out there and knocked on the back door. Nobody come to the door. So I go around to the front door, and I was walking up the steps. And I heard something coming down the side of the mountain there, and it just sounded like a bulldozer coming off the side of the mountain. It was just wrecking stuff.
Oh, wow.
Limbs popping, brush shaking, the whole 9 yards, right? And there wasn't no street light close enough to light everything up, but they had the bathroom light on. And you know how the light will shine through a window like that down onto the ground, and you can see, like, it looks like the cross section of the window.
Yes.
The wood part that's holding the four different panes.
Yeah.
Well, it come to right outside of that light and stopped.
Wow.
And
creepy.
I heard this snapping, popping, cracking, like somebody cracking their knuckles, except louder.
Oh.
And it was just a wet snapping and popping sound.
What do you think that is?
And then that thing, I don't know. I'll be honest with you, I really don't know.
Because I've
But I know
heard that.
That thing stepped into the light, and its eyes were glowing orange. And you could literally see the slobber coming out of that thing's mouth, and it had like too many teeth.
Wow, that's exactly what people say.
And it was doing its hands, like right before a person charges somebody, sometimes they'll clench their hands into a fist and open it back up.
Yeah.
It was doing that with both of its hands, and I could hear them claws clicking when it was doing that.
Oh, wow, you really
and
got
I just
detail.
froze there. I just froze, and I thought, that's an effing werewolf. I was just in shock,
Yeah.
And then I thought, Jesus, that's a werewolf. And when I thought the name Jesus, my feet unfroze. And the porch was made out of cement in the steps.
Yeah.
And there was a roof overhang there. But one side of the porch that was on was right on the ground. But on the other end of the porch, it was about an 8.5, 9 foot drop.
Yeah.
Down to the ground. And then there was a crushed red rock driveway coming across that. And a narrow driveway. And on the other side of that, there was an embankment that went down about 30 foot. with a bunch of brush and everything in it.
Okay.
Well, when my feet unfroze, I ran. Well, let me tell you what happened before that. When I was thinking that's an effing werewolf, I could sense that it was amused. It was like it was laughing at me.
Huh.
And when it did that, I thought, Jesus, that's a werewolf. And that's when my feet unfroze and I took off running. And when I took off running, it come down onto all fours for a second and jumped straight at me.
Oh, crazy scary. Oh, man.
And when I got to the end of the porch, I just, instead of jumping, I dropped and squatted down. And when I hit the ground and looked up, it went over me.
Oh, geez.
Hit in the middle of that gravel road. And thank God that the gravel was pretty thick on that road. It couldn't stop itself. It slid in that gravel off the edge of that embankment and fell down that embankment about 30 foot into that brush.
Yeah.
And the minute that thing hit that gravel, I started running.
Yeah, no kidding. I was out.
I mean, I was laid out running fast as I could go. And by the time I got back to the house, I could feel that thing right behind me.
Dang, quick. Oh,
and
man.
I shut that door, and I remember thinking, thank you, God, I made it home. You know what I mean? And my dad's like, when's Mike going to be here? I said, I didn't get Mike. He said, well, what are you doing home? And I wasn't about to tell my dad that I saw a werewolf, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But, I mean, this was 83, 84. I'm not about to tell my dad I saw a werewolf. I said, there was a big guy come running down the hill onto the porch with me while I was there, and I had to get off the porch. He said, well, you going to have to go back and get him? I said, no, I can't go back and get him. You don't understand.
Yeah. Wow.
Well, he sat there for 20 minutes telling me I got to go back and me telling him I can't go back. And finally, he just reaches and grabs his 357 out of the drawer there by the chair and hands it to him and said, you're going to get him.
Dang.
You're going back out there to get him. And I just looked at my dad. I said, this thing don't have enough bullets. He opened this drawer up, grabbed a box of bullets and said, here, take as many as you want, but you're going to get him.
Your dad got no time for games.
No. I had to go back out there and get him, but I went to the kitchen and stuck a butcher knife in the back of my belt, and I had that 357 Magnum and got me a flashlight, and it wasn't there. When I went back, I took that pistol and I beat on the door to my uncle, come to the door, and I said, get out here now. We got to go.
Jeez, wow, what a terrifying experience. I could picture everything that you're saying. So one thing that I have learned over the years of doing this, I've spoken to, at least 10 different people that experience the Dogman. And one thing that they do have in common is this popping noise. And the one person that I did speak to, I talked to so many people, I have to look back at what episode it was, but it was one of the people I interviewed, they said they got a good view at it. And they said when it was popping, it said it's because when they saw it, it was on all fours. And then when it stood up on all twos, it said its whole body started popping and like coming out of place and in place for it to stand up on all.
I've heard that too, but I didn't see it do that. So I can't say what it was for sure, but that makes as much sense to me as anything.
Yeah. They say this thing, like it just doesn't just stand up and go on all fours. Like it has to like readjust its whole, anatomy or something for it to go in those two different forms. Because the people that see these Dogmen, and when they say this just sounds so creepy. They say there's two different, versions of it. There's one where it's standing up on both feet, and there's one where it's on all fours, but it's kind of like a spider with four legs, the way it's moving. That sounds creepy to me. That sounds awfully creepy. I
don't know about the Dogman doing that, but I do know that the Sasquatch creatures do.
Oh, that's even worse because it doesn't make it, because the face looks more human. Oh man, that's awful. It's a creepy thing to think about.
They will literally crawl on the ground like a spider.
Oh wow!
And they can do it as well backwards as they can forward.
That's so creepy to think about. That sounds like some kind of exorcism movie when they start getting in that position. And that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, that's exactly what it makes me think of.
Yeah, because it's the same spirit, I guess.
The one that I saw, dude, it was totally dark. I couldn't really see nothing but the shadowy shape of it. But I was outside doing a chore for my dad once again, And I felt something behind me, and I turned around, and as I turned around, one was crawling out of the bushes like that toward me, and it stopped. And I guess it thought I didn't see it, and I jerked, and I said, "Oh!" And when I did, it went backwards the same way it went forward, back up the hill into the bushes, and never turned around to look.
That's so
Its head
ugly.
was still looking at me, and it went backwards just like it went forward. That scared the crap out of me.
Hell yes, that sounds awful. I've only seen that kind of stuff in movies where they move creepy like that and they run backwards up on the wall. That is so weird. What is the point of that thing walking that way when it can walk upright other than freaking somebody out?
Well, I think it was doing it for stealth purposes. I think it was. This is my theory on that kind of thing. I think it's very rare that a person encounters one of the large ones. You're dealing mostly with the teenage ones. And that's what it feels like you're dealing with a bunch of teenagers out playing tag or something, having a prank, laughing at you. When they're playing in the yard at night. Now, the adult ones don't give you that, but the teenage ones or adolescent ones do. And you'll see them doing things like that. But the big ones, if you see one of them doing it, my suspicion is that thing's trying to take you out without being noticed.
Yeah.
Just like a soldier belly crawls on the ground to kill a sentry. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
That's what they're doing. They're staying low to the ground, keeping their silhouette low so that you don't see them. And most people don't see them. You'll talk to people that go in the woods hunting all the time. And they'll say, "I never seen one." I believe you. I believe you didn't because you don't pay attention. And another thing is this right here. This is one part of it I don't talk about a lot. My grandmother was almost full-blooded Cherokee Indian. And I asked her about it when I was a kid. I hunted a lot. And there'd be times I'd be in woods hunting, and you could feel something out in the woods with you. And all of a sudden it would get real quiet. And you could hear it coming toward you. Some of the noise would die down, and then more of the noise would die down, and more of the noise until there wasn't nothing. No mosquitoes, no gnats, nothing moving. And you could tell which direction it was coming from. You could I could close my eyes and point to it. I could feel it. And I asked her what that was, and she said, "Well, I can't tell you what it is, but I can tell you this. If you ever feel that, what you need to do is first, don't be whistling or singing or making any noise. You stop making any noise. Do not look up. Do not look at it. Look down at the ground. Turn around and walk back out the same way you came in. And just start talking to yourself like you forgot something back at the house. And if you feel it getting too close to you, just stop doing that and start praying. And rebuking it in the name of Jesus."
That's why.
And that's what you told me.
Why not? Why what do you think the purpose is of looking down? And even though it's right in front of you, looking down, what does that do? It tells the
it
creature.
Takes away its predatory instinct. What happens when you look a dog in the eyes or any wild animal?
Yeah,
it takes it as a threat and it attacks.
Yeah. Okay, guess that makes sense. So, what do you think these things are? Because they are obviously physical. If there's teenage,
you don't have to think. I know what they are from the Bible.
Okay, so let me just get my question out there. So my question is, how are these things physical, having kids, but they're also could be rebuked in the name of Jesus? Because wouldn't that only be demonic spirits that we have power over?
Okay, I'm going to explain it to you.
Okay.
It tells you about it in Genesis 6, where the angels came down and they had children, offspring with the daughters of men. And then it goes on to tell you that they didn't just do that with the daughters of men, that they corrupted all the creation. They made it with animals and all sorts of other things. They even made it, that said even the grass of the field was corrupted by them. So there's all kinds of conglomerations of these things. It tells you about it in Greek mythology. You got your satyrs, you got your centaurs, you got your, the minotaur. All of these creatures, they all got something in common. They came from the same type of parentage. A demon's not a fallen angel. A fallen angel is a fallen angel. That's the Nephilim. The word Nephilim literally means those that fell from heaven. When they mated with those women, they made the mighty men, or the Gibberim. Those things, when they die, their spirits are cursed and bound to the earth. Talks about that in the book of Enoch, and I think it touches on it in Daniel, where a certain amount of those during the flood, everybody wants to know how they repopulated after the flood. Well, I'll tell you how. It tells you in the book of Enoch, and like I said, it touches on it somewhere in Daniel, where a certain percentage of those things were preserved by God to fulfill his wrath in the last days against the wicked. That's what it's talking about in Revelation when it tells you that men's hearts will fail them for fear for the things coming upon the earth. All them fantastical, wild creatures it's talking about coming upon the face of the earth during Revelation, well, that's what you're dealing with. That's these things, brothers and sisters. Those things, when they die, their spirits are cursed and bound to the earth. They can't go to heaven and they can't go to hell. They're cursed to stay here and still feel hunger, thirst, and their sexual drive, but with no flesh to complete the urge. That's what causes demonic possession. That's why you can't get a good picture of these things, because all of their family going generations back is still with them. Their spirits are still dwelling with them.
Wow.
That's why you can feel them like that. You can feel the evil.
That's a very interesting way of putting it. I never thought about that. I do know about Enoch and all the, I know what the spirits are, but the other thing that you said,
I did a lot of studying about this.
Yeah.
Over the last 30 years. And I can tell you, when you get into the Bible and you really look and you go into the book of Enoch, it explains to you exactly what they are.
Oh yeah. That's not what I was I was talking about when you said how the spirit, we try to take a picture of these things and they're not there because you said they're dwelling with the people. That right there that's something I never heard before. It's very interesting. And when you do,
I've got footage on my computer right now from a guy that literally went out in the woods and filmed these things, and you can see them manifesting, the demons manifesting around and coming in and out of the trees and all kind of crazy stuff.
What do they look like?
I don't even like looking at that footage.
Like spirits, like shadows.
Yeah.
Wow. The things
you can pause the video. You can pause the video, turn around and get you something to drink and look back at it, and it has moved. They're not bound by the same laws of physics and time we are.
You're saying like the video on pause, it will move in the video still? That's wild.
Yes.
That's so scary.
I won't even show. I've got a YouTube channel. I wouldn't put that footage up and show it to nobody.
Yeah.
Because you're giving it a doorway into their house.
Wow. That's awfully scary, man. That's like something you see in the movies. This is stuff you only see in the movies, and then you start to understand where they get the idea for these movies.
Yeah, where do you think they get the scripts for them movies?
Yeah, no kidding.
The UFO movies, all that stuff, they get that stuff straight out of the CIA and the government. They give them scripts.
I digged into that rabbit hole. I know about the CIA approving scripts. They have to even approve them too. Because if they're not, pushing what they want to push, ain't going to make any money. It's going to go straight to us, and it goes straight to.
They want us to think what they want us to think about them. They want us to think that that's a monkey out there in the woods that just hadn't been discovered yet.
Yeah, right. A monkey looks like a
all
spider.
this other stuff. No, that's not what it is at all.
I always thought,
no, sir.
What would these generations, like this past, the past 100 years, what would this world be like if we never got a chance to see movies? If movies never existed, all the movies we watch, think about how much influence it's had on us.
Oh Lord, yes. How much better society would be.
Yeah, it's insane how far we're into. Like we're over. Like when was the first movie released? Like almost 100 years ago or more, even. Picture movies.
Yeah, it was over 100 years now.
Yeah, we're at the point now where there's no turning back. That's never going to be. It's always going to be that and more. It's more now. I mean, it's virtual reality.
Yeah,
it's virtual reality. It's coming into the mark of the beast type of thing. It's not if, it's but when. I'm already seeing the puzzle pieces get together.
Well, when TV first came out, all the shows were wholesome. You had Andy Griffith and Leave It to Beaver. And the dad was respected, and he always knew what was best. Or on Andy Griffith, occasionally he had to learn something from his son. He had to relearn it, something he already knew. But then you get the 80s come along, and you've got stuff like Married with Children, with Al Bundy for the dad, and Peg for the mom, with unruly children that run the house. And the dad's just a doofus. And it wasn't just one show. It started being all the shows, didn't it?
Yeah.
That was social engineering.
And look how far it's come. It's like basically, I mean, it's got, I mean, can I even say it? I mean, now you got gays, you got, you know, lesbians on TV, transgenders on TV, you got, you know, all this woke nonsense.
You can't watch a show now without it.
Yeah, even it doesn't even matter if it's a homosexual or a man and a woman having sex on TV. I honestly don't want to see it, either of them.
Me and you both.
It's very uncomfortable.
I'll tell you right now, I don't want a straight person grooming my children.
Yeah.
And I darn sure don't want a homosexual doing it. I don't want nobody grooming my children.
I agree with you. What was I going to say again? So back to, I wanted to get back to that whole generational thing that you were talking about, with the demons and how they stick with you for the general. So what have you learned in there that's really, that opened up your mind to like, what is the goal of these things? Where's the end game for these things? Where is it going to lead to? Are they going to start possessing, you know, these AI bodies? Like what have you learned about this afterlife, or, you know, these spirits trapped here?
I'll tell you what I've learned about those creatures, for one thing. I did a little bit of research, and do you know that the rate that American people in America go missing exactly mirrors the amount of animals that go missing on the Serengeti Plains to predators like lions and things like that?
No, I didn't know that.
The numbers are within 1% of each other, same. I think that wicked people, they're allowed to touch if they catch them in their wickedness, and that they do it quite frequently. I think our government knows it, and they don't care. I think that sometimes, and I've just come to this understanding in the last year or so, to be honest, after praying on it. I wondered why I saw those things. And I've known of other Christian people that have seen them. And when you go to your pastor and you ask them about this, they'll either act like they don't know what you're talking about or act like you're crazy. And you know, basically, if you don't stop talking about it, they'll ask you to leave the church. I think that God is letting things approach Christians so that we can see them, ask questions, and ask Him, and get to understand what they are, to prepare us, because we're coming close to the day they're going to be turned loose on this earth to punish the wicked, like you said. I think there's a reason He's letting Christians see it. It's to expose that the church ain't teaching us what we're supposed to learn. And it's to make us study to show ourselves approved.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That's what I think. And I'm going to tell you something else. A lot of people won't say this, but I will. I live about 45 minutes from Gulf Breeze, Florida. I'm still in Alabama, but I'm just 20, 30 minutes on the other side of the Florida line in Alabama.
Okay.
Ever since the 80s, there has been, only God knows how many reports of UFOs down here, right? I live in the middle of like 5 different major naval air stations, Coast Guard air stations, you know, just military airfield all around me. And what I used to do was I put in communications networks at those bases. For like Eglin Air Force Base, Stennis Naval NASA Research Facility, that sort of stuff, right?
Yeah.
Everybody down here sees UFOs. You see them all the time. I mean, it's just a part of life. If you're looking up and paying attention, you're going to see one. These things are linked. When you're talking about these cryptid things out in the woods and these things, these lights in the sky, they all have the same source. It's either in fallen angels or God's angels, because they travel in these types of things too, or their offspring. And that's what people are dealing with. The government knows all about it. They made deals with these beings. They were charged technology for giving them permission to snatch people and do whatever they want to do and keep it quiet. That's my belief. And it's not just based on my feelings. It's based on a lot of research and, things I've looked into. Let's just put it that way. Everything that we're seeing, the Bible told us it was going to happen. And if you really get into it and you really study the Bible, and you don't just read it like a Western book, because it's not a Western book. That book was not written in English. It was written in Hebrew, Greek, Aramaic, and Chaldean. Get you a Strong's Concordance. And when you're reading that Bible, something kind of don't make sense to you, stop. Stop. Find the word that's bothering you, look it up in that Strong Concordance, and then look up a few of the words around it and find out what you're actually reading. And it all starts becoming crystal clear real quickly, what we're dealing with and what they're doing and what's about to happen. Like, for instance, put it this way. In the Bible where it says, it's easier for a rich man to pass through the eye of a needle. I mean, for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter into heaven. Well, I'm going to tell you a little secret. There was what they call a colloquialism. It was a figure of speech that was popular at the time that was written. There in Jerusalem, they had a wall around the city and they had different gates. Well, after night fell, they closed the big main gates, and they had a gate called the Needle Gate. And it was small, it was short, and it was of a size where if you came in at night and you went through that gate and you had a camel, you had to stop, get off your camel, take everything off of it, all the packs that you got on it and stuff that's in it, everything you got off of that camel, get the camel down on its knees and crawl through the gate. And they'd pat you down, and then they'd help you tote your stuff in, and they'd look through it as they did. That was the eye of the needle. We're thinking a sewing needle, right?
Yeah, I didn't know that.
A camel can't pass through the eye of a sewing needle. That's not what it's talking about.
I honestly never knew.
But once you understand that that's the needle gate, that it is big enough for a camel to pass through, even though it's a tight fit, it starts to make more sense, don't it?
Yes, I've heard that verse before, and I honestly I just didn't know what it meant. I just like, what? Huh? Next. But wow.
Mm-hmm. Like in Genesis, where it said, the world was void and without form. That's not what it says in Hebrew. It says the world became void and without form. You go on over later on in the Bible, it tells you when God created the world, he didn't create it void. He created it to be inhabited. Why the contradiction? Well, there's no contradiction. There was an age before Adam where the earth was destroyed. It tells you about it in the Bible. It tells you there was a war between Lucifer and 1/3 of the angels turned on God. Another third of them turned on Lucifer, and another third sat there and watched to see what happened. There was a war before Adam ever came here.
And
remember, it tells you in the Bible that he knew us before we was put in our mother's womb. He knew us. How do you know?
Yes.
Because we were here before that. We just have no memory of what passed before.
Yeah. Wow. That's very deep thinking right there. It's a lot to process. But I've had
I highly suggest that every Christian get you a Strong's Concordance
I've had Gary
And
Wayne
anytime
on,
you run into,
and we spoke about this, about the pre-Adamite age. We went into like a 5-episode series, so I'm really familiar with this, but I haven't spoken. That was like 3 years ago I did those podcasts, but yeah, I'm very familiar with the angelic war and the pre-Adamite age, where the people had different theories, but from what I was told, like the angels were kind of ruling the earth at the time, and et cetera, et cetera. Down the story goes, because we have we find these megalithic structures that, how the Bible says, Adam and Eve go back 6,000 years, 65, whatever that number is. But, we're finding these megalithic structures that go back hundreds of thousands of, these crazy numbers, and, just connecting it back to that angelic, race, or whatever that race was before, the Adam and Eve time.
I'll tell you something that you can look up that's very enlightening. There was a guy, I guess, 10 years ago, was going around doing these videos on YouTube, calling them ooparts. It was out of place artifacts. They take this rock that only God knows how old that rock is, but it's thousands upon tens of thousands of years old. You know what I'm saying? It's granite rock.
Yeah.
They did a X-ray of it, and there's a spark plug inside of it.
Wow, that's very interesting.
Ain't it?
Yes, I think I've heard of this before.
And I mean, he's just got thousands of these things, like chrome vanadium steel balls being found in statues in Latin America that are thousands of years old, from around the time of Christ. And they've got modern crucible steel balls in them. That's not possible.
That's wild.
By what we've been told now, but it's there. They've got these statues down there all over the place of these people that are clearly of African descent. We've been told they brought them all over here on the slave ship, but that's not true. There's statues of them down there from thousands of years ago.
Well, I never heard of that before, of that side of it. These statues, where are these statues at, these African statues?
They're in South America. And they're clearly of African descent.
What do you know?
There's no way around it.
What's the name of this? Is there a theory, a name for this tribe or this culture, ancient culture?
Oh Lord, what do they call it? I'll think of it in a second.
It's not the. What do you call it again?
It starts with the O.
The Olmecs.
Yes, the Olmecs.
Yeah,
they're the ones that made these statues.
Yeah, they have like this, almost like an Asian African type of look.
They have Asian, they have African, and they have mixture.
Yeah, it's a very
and they have Caucasian statues as well.
Yeah, they're very interesting. Like whatever was going on back then, I mean, they look human, but their features were just completely different. God knows what races.
Tell you what was going on. God likes diversity.
Yeah,
He didn't make one type of bird. He didn't make one type of anything.
Yeah.
He makes a diverse group of it. I mean, he likes diversity.
Yeah.
And there was a worldwide society. Oceans were not a barrier to travel. They were the highway.
Yeah.
And the more you look, the more you find. And don't get me wrong, I'm not pushing this because I don't agree with their conclusions. But you can watch Ancient Aliens and find enough stuff to really make you scratch your head. And the stuff they're telling you, the artifacts they're showing you and stuff like that is real. I don't agree with their conclusions.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
But you can't argue with the data. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I know about Ancient Aliens, yes. Definitely have the same thought as you. They're talking about real stuff, but they're just connecting it to all this, Anunnaki nonsense or whatever. Aliens from other planets, whatever. Etc.
And think about this. There's a tribe of people, one of the tribes that God told them to wipe out, that were called the Enoch.
Yeah, the sons of Enoch.
Yeah, the sons of Enoch.
The ones who were in the promised land, they got wiped out.
That was one of the Nephilim offspring tribes of the Gibberim.
Yep.
Of course they wrote a story saying that they were the gods. Of course they did.
Yeah, this is like very...
it's not hard to figure out.
That's how I see it, but a lot of people don't see it that way.
Well...
I argue all day about this stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot of people you can tell them 2 + 2 = 4, and they'll argue with you about it all day, but that don't make them right.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I just try to spread the gospel, even by defending the faith, and sometimes I run into these people, but they're on a big assumptions and a lot of theories, pretty much what it all comes down to. But really quick here,
Yeah.
I really enjoyed this conversation, but we're coming up to about 10 minutes to the end of the time limit of the show. Before we get off here, we have about 10 minutes. Would you like to leave anything final for the audience? And one thing too, before, I wanted to ask you this question, and I want the audience to hear this because this is something I've been wanting to say. So this goes out there to all the podcasts, these people that call themselves Christian podcasters, right? But their logo is nothing has to do with Christianity. It's some kind of Bigfoot or some kind of Dogman logo or some Nephilim, but they're a Christian podcast, right? But their logo is, some monster. And then you click on their episodes and all they talk about is demons and, Bigfoot and this. Yep. And then they even go in to say that these things are friendly. They're helping people out, blah, blah, blah. So my question to you is for the audience, are these things evil, or are they here to help us out? I know the answer to this, but I want the audience to hear this, the ones that listen to this stuff.
They're here to help us, all right, help us straight into the pit. They despise us. And that's just the long and short of it. They despise us.
Yeah.
The angels that rebelled thought that the earth and all this creation was being made for them. And when they realized, no, it was being made for us and they were going to be our servants, they went berserk. They hate our guts. And their offspring hates us even worse.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? The way I describe it's like this. Imagine, you come in the house and your dad's there and you got all these brothers and sisters running around and he's giving your other brothers and sisters this ice cream. And you walk up and say, "Where's my ice cream?" And he slaps you over into the corner and says, "You sit down there. I didn't make this for you."
Yeah.
Well, that's how they look at it.
That's how they feel,
how would you look at your brothers and sisters? You'd hate them, wouldn't you?
Yeah. I'll be pretty jealous.
I mean, now that's not exactly the way it happened, but that's the way everybody can understand.
I mean, people that, if anybody tries to comment on saying that was literally being taken, they got to be a fool. But yeah, my audience is pretty intelligent. I hope that they could understand that analogy that you're giving.
Well, you have to think about it like this. There's no forgiveness for what Satan done. We can get forgiveness for our sins.
Yes.
And can you imagine how much he hates and resents us for that?
Oh, yeah. I've thought about this. Yeah, I've had my deep thoughts about this. And it's really hard to understand because we're not, we weren't there, but I could just imagine how intense it is because we've all experienced jealousy at some point, and we're thinking about this at a level that's just about things that we couldn't comprehend right now, The jealousy was at that level. And
another thing that really upsets him is it tells you plain in the Bible that we will judge angels.
Yeah, that's true.
That makes it even worse in his eyes.
And we're going to become above them, I believe, right? And become like them.
And all things serve the purpose of the Lord.
Yes.
He's allowed to test us. He's allowed to test us because he told the Lord, these things will betray you. They're going to spit in your face and I can show you. You remember like when he was talking with Job?
Yeah.
Job was telling us in just in the story of one man what's going on with all men. He's tempting us to show God that we're not worthy of the sacrifice he made for us, and that he should be spending his time with them instead of us. Yeah. So no, they don't want to help none of us. I'm not going to say none of them creatures ever help nobody, but the thing is this right here, they're flesh and blood creatures.
Yeah.
They don't become demons until they die.
Yes.
They after being here for, hundreds of years, experiencing hunger, thirst, and arousal with no way to sate those desires, they become insane. Some of the flesh ones may do some things inadvertently, just out of curiosity. What will this thing do? When you're a little kid, you see a fly stuck in some syrup on the table. You grab it by its wings, you pull it out of there. What's that thing going to do? You sit him on the counter.
Yeah.
Maybe one of his wings came off, maybe it didn't, But you're curious what it's going to do. You might walk around. That's what they're doing when they help somebody.
Huh. Well, yeah. I mean, another thing too. I mean, if a demon or some creature that's not of the kingdom of heaven wants to help you, best believe there's always you're gonna owe it later, and it's gonna probably cost
and
your life.
Pay a heck of a price.
Yes, you're going to pay a big price. You're going to lose something, your life, your family, best friend, whatever. Something's going to happen. So there's always, the devil always comes for his payment. That's what people got to understand,
There ain't no free lunches.
Nope. The demons have the power to heal. There's only one free lunch,
and that's the sacrifice Jesus made for us.
Yep. Demons can do miracles too, but there's a price to pay. They can give you money, give you fame. They could do all kinds of crazy things, levitate.
And they never truly deliver on that.
Nope. They never do. And I could see it with a lot of these celebrities when they start, when their life starts falling apart. Just like this guy, Billy Carson, this ancient aliens priest.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
When he got just like that, he's a perfect example. He reached the top of, I would say, the podcasting world. I mean, this guy's making millions of dollars. I don't know if people know this, but in YouTube, when you have that many followers and all these different doing these conferences, charging $1,000 a ticket. I mean, I just don't even under the level of brainwashing you have to be to pay this much money to see this guy talk about absolutely nothing is absolutely insane to me. But he reached the pinnacle of the ancient alien, demonic world. He was making millions, hundreds of millions of dollars in career. And what happened?
A bunch of made up garbage.
Yes, and
made up garbage. Talking about the Emerald Tablets.
Out of all that stuff, out of all that nonsense, he was dethroned by the most humble, nicest little white guy by the name of Wesley Huff. He barely spoke 15 words in the first 10 minutes.
How he reacted.
And it destroyed him.
You saw how he reacted. He went to that man's house in the middle of the night, threatening him.
Yeah, we saw. Yeah, that's all went viral. But the point is that this is exactly how things come crumbling down when you're in that evil world and you're getting favors from these demonic creatures or getting help from him. That's how it works. You reach this pinnacle, and then once they don't need you no more, everything comes crumbling down. And it's usually a wake up call. So I just want to leave that out there, but. Thank you very much for coming on the show, my friend. Just maybe say a little prayer to end this show, and we'll get you out of here so you can get to your night. I know it's late where you're at. It's like, going to be 9 o'clock. So go ahead, Lee. Can you give us a prayer? I was told by Corey that you give really powerful prayers, so I would love for you to do one if you can.
Okay.
Please.
Lord, I want to thank you for this time of giving us fellowship together and being able to speak about these things and to give out some information to your children, because that's why you show us these things, is so we can testify to others. And I ask that you wash away all of our sin, transgression, and iniquity, and clothe us in the righteousness of our Lord and Savior, Christ Jesus. And Lord, I ask for a blessing for this man's channel, and that you lift him up and help him get the word out about your creation and about how much you love your children and how exciting your word is. Because it truly is the most exciting story ever told. When you read it and understand it and understand what's being said, it's fantastic. There's nothing to match it. No episode of Star Wars. You could take every sci-fi thing ever invented and put it together, and every one of them was ripped off in some way out of the Bible, but they're not nearly as exciting as your word. And I want to thank you for the opportunity to testify on your behalf. And Lord, I ask that you use this as a way to pour your spirit out upon people and to draw more people to you. I know right now that there are people probably listening to this that are caught up in witchcraft, that have been listening to these people evangelize the offspring of the Nephilim. And they call themselves Christians. And they say, well, I read this in the Bible, but they never get around talking about you. They're so busy lifting those things up and leading people down that rabbit hole that they don't have time for you. And I just want every person to know that if they're dabbling in that, if they're messing with that, if they're a hardcore Satanist, I want you to understand that there is no scenario in which they win. You literally created the entire universe and everything in it. The only thing holding any of this together is your will. If by some fantastical means they were able to destroy you, it would destroy them as well. So there is no other option here. It's ludicrous to think that there is, and it's actually kind of comical to think that the creatures that you created and hold together with your mind can defeat you. It's crazy. And Lord, I ask that you help people to see that you speak to their hearts and that you bring them to you, Lord, and woo them. And I decree and declare victory for your kingdom now in the name of Christ Jesus. Amen.
Amen. That was a beautiful prayer. Thank you very much for that. All righty. We are going to close out. Yes. Thank you for that. Thank you, everybody, for listening to the show. This was a very eye-opening one for me. Hang on the line here, my friend. I'm going to close out here. Thank you, everybody, for listening to the show. Hope you guys learned something new. This was a very great show with someone who's an elder, who has more knowledge, and I always shut up and listen. That's why I don't really speak much when someone like this is talking. So I learned a lot. God bless this man. And we're going to close out the show. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe on all our different channels. Thank you, everybody, for listening. I really appreciate it. We are on all the social medias, YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. Also, really quick, my friend, do you have any websites or anything to put out there? Sorry, go ahead.
On YouTube.
On YouTube. What's your YouTube channel?
Mysterious Encounters.
Mysterious Encounters on YouTube. And give us your full name again for the audience.
Byron Cagle, Cagle.
All righty, Mysterious Encounters. Thank you very much. I'll get with you in a second.
Persecution of apostles. They want to see his people in the dirt with the fossils. You may be thinking that might sound extreme, but you gotta ask yourself, is this life what it seems? People suffering for Christ in this world full of schemes and agendas. Would you give your life for the king? Give it up. Martyrdom, yeah, that really is the thing. Better look it up if you don't believe, you know what I mean? We gotta try our hardest not to be so naive and be mindful of the children and people that bleed for the name of Christ. The only one that can save your life. He saved mine never once, gotta thank him twice. The amount of 1,000 thanks in a day. Knowing I gotta give him more praise when I pray. Finally I feel alive and I know why. Cause I'm giving all the glory to the Most High. They don't want to hear the truth, that is no lie. If we ain't in the last days, then we're close by. The devil's trying to snatch your soul and it's not a game. You hear me saying Jesus Christ and it's not in vain. They might get offended every time I drop his name, but I'ma let them know that I'm not ashamed. Can't be content with just church on Sunday.